I think it's important too to realize that like the other person is gonna let you down and you're gonna let them down. And I
Yes.
realize that like we are human and we're gonna make mistakes, and not to put that expectation of, oh, like they're gonna be perfect and never gonna let me down, and same like vice versa. Like how can I be a good like girlfriend and like serve well and all these different things of having the expectation for yourself. I think you kind of have to realize I'm going to make mistakes and so is he, but together we serve a perfect savior, and that's the love that we're striving for. So you say
That's
you're
good.
just
That's really good.
Welcome to the Catch Up Podcast, where Christian friends come together to catch up and explore God-centered conversations. Our goal is to inspire, share stories, and deepen our faith in light of the gospel. Without further ado, let's journey together in this week's episode of the Catch Up Podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the Catch Up Podcast. So this is our take 2 of this episode of the podcast, unfortunately. This is our first time having a guest remotely. So this is our guest today, Audree. Audree, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Audree. I go to Oklahoma State, and I'm so happy to be on the podcast.
Yes. And also, you have a podcast. Can you tell us something about that?
I do. So me and one of my roommates, her name's Eleanor, which we miss her today. She's at work. So, but we have a podcast called And They Were Roommates, which is kind of fitting. But it's just basically how to navigate college, like going to a secular college in this world while following Jesus. So just kind of different pieces of advice, and yeah.
Okay,
That's
nice,
awesome.
nice,
That's
nice.
awesome.
So is your podcast like catered for basically young adults or like all ages?
No, definitely young adults. So
Young adults. Okay, that's
yeah.
nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so Audree, we want to ask you. So, what would you say is like an evidence of grace for you this past week? Like just like areas where you see God moved over the past week. Like, could you tell us something that you're like, saw God moved in a certain way?
Yeah, I love that. So I was also at Passion, and I feel like during Passion conference and then afterwards, I felt like the Lord has just called me into a season of rest. And I'm very much like a type A person, constantly like doing things, and so that's been really hard. But it's been just really fruitful seeing how it's been with the Lord, just kind of filling that role of like my best friend and my comforter. And even during a season of rest, it's like, okay, like I'm not necessarily like bored or lonely or anything because I have the Lord that fills that role and is my comfort. So
Mm-hmm. That's nice. That's
Good.
nice. That's
good.
amazing. All right, Joe. Do you have any questions for Audree?
Oh man! So just getting into
let's get into
All right. No. Okay. So we're all to anybody listening. So we're all eager a little bit today to get into this conversation because we had a full blown recorded episode. We said amazing things. Everybody, Audree, Marc, everything was on point. It was great. But the only thing that wasn't on point was our audio. So Audree came onto the podcast. She was so kind to make time for it. We got video, we got audio, we got her video, but we didn't get her audio. So it looks like me and Marc are just crazy, just talking and there's no audio or anything. And so
it was heartbreaking.
It was
when we saw that, we were like, Christian was like crying face. We were like, oh my gosh, like that was a good conversation. And I was like actually thinking about that like on the way home. We were just like, dude, that was like a great conversation. And there's just like
it was such a great
it wasn't recorded.
It really was.
Yes. And Audree she gave a lot of wise insights into the conversation. And I was just like thinking, there's like, you know what? Okay, maybe this is not a coincidence. It's not a maybe. It's like it's definitely not a coincidence. We believe in God's providence and God's sovereignty. That we believe that he did this on purpose just to like, hey, we're gonna have a better conversation today, and that it's gonna be more fruitful. Yeah. And there's some stuff maybe that are said in the podcast that are not to be said, that like that are not meant to be heard by people. I think so. maybe this is our second chance. And God is like, okay.
Second chance. He's the God of second chances.
Okay. Anyways. But so to get into the topic, so right now we are basically going into the topic of answering the question, what to look for in dating.
Yes.
So Audrey, as someone who is a young adult Christian and who is someone who goes to college and that are obviously have been asked by so many guys, I would argue, what qualities do you value in dating?
So obviously the number one, they have to be a follower of Jesus, but I kind of want to get into that a little bit more. I feel like now, you see a lot of people who go to church, have a cross necklace, have it in their bio, a little Bible verse, but they aren't actually following the Lord. And so I think that that's just definitely the number one characteristic, like they have to be fully devoted Christian and truly like walking in that, not just acting like it. So that's definitely number one. And then I think someone who's just very like servant-hearted, confident, just someone who truly just wants to serve others and loves everyone around them. So
that's
so
good.
what does that look like to be a servant of Christ, to be his follower? Because it's easy to kind of like pretend like I think you said it earlier. It's easy to pretend that you know the Bible. It's easy to pretend that like being nice to people, and so on and so forth. But how would you know that someone is truly a follower of Christ? Guys, I mean, like I don't know if you're aware, but in John chapter 6, like there's people that follow Jesus, and it turns out they just followed him because they were a fan of his works. They're just a fan of everything that he does. But when he starts talking about, hey, I am the bread of life, people starts leaving. And then he was just left with the disciples. So how, like, for someone who is looking into dating, how would you know if someone is truly intently, passionately following the Lord?
Yeah. I think, someone can only act for so long. And I think that you really have to look at like the fruit of their life and, how are they treating people who can do nothing for them? And are they just going to church, or do you see that, pour out into other areas of their life? Are they actually like talking about Jesus? Are they truly trying to make disciples? I think that just kind of seeing their actions over a period of time can kind of tell that. And also I think kind of seeing who they surround themselves with, like what does their community look like? And then also just praying about it and praying for that discernment, because, you can't ever like see someone's heart. But I think that if you pray and ask the Lord to reveal that to you, then he will. So
That's good. That's good. Joe, do you have a question?
Well, I mean, or I guess just to add to, like, no, I think you're completely right in that. Like, there's, you know who someone is just through the fruit of their life, and like, and when you spend time around, and especially if you pray to God, and like you were saying, just like looking for those answers and stuff like that, God will reveal those things. I think we forget that God is a God who answers prayers, and so like, it may be some good fruit that someone's producing, or maybe some bad, and that's something that you have to be really honest with yourself and looking for potential partner and stuff. So, but yeah,
that's good. That's good. That's amazing. Do you have anything to add to that, Audrey?
I kind of want to hear y'all's thoughts on it. Like, what would you say?
Oh, Joe, do you want to go first?
Man, I think like, golly, there's like, so I guess like question is just like what, like how do you know that they're true followers?
Yeah,
right?
Or like just like what qualities do you value in dating, and then how can you discern that those qualities are true and authentic?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think definitely, with man, like you were saying, like first, like knowing that they're a follower of Christ, and a follower of Christ, like they're like the disciples. They didn't just sit still. They went and acted. They were participants in the kingdom. And really, being a participant in the kingdom is really quite simply, God simplified, the law into two commandments: on to love God and to love people. And like, we can all love, like there's so many people that love God. It's just like it's so much in their secret, in the secret place, that you don't necessarily see it out in public. But like, you can see very clearly if somebody loves people or not. If somebody is a true servant. And like my dad, one of the best advice I got my marriage was my dad. He told me, he's like, marriage, he's like, when you simplify it down, is two selfish people dying to themselves. That's basically, that sounds really intense, but it's just, it's, in marriage, when you're becoming one, you are learning to, you're learning to serve somebody else, like, and not like desiring anything in return. It is like just fully unselfish love. And so I think, when you see somebody like you were saying too, like, Audrey, of, serving, like people who serve, but like that don't expect anything back. I think that's such a good quality to look for. But yeah, man. What about you, brother?
Oh man, I didn't have time to think. I was just too busy listening to you, actually. I mean, like, basically, like, almost similar to like what Audrey was saying. It's like that heart of a servant that, like, you will know by their fruit. Like, isn't that what Jesus said? Like, you will know my disciples by how they love. And again, like, if they're putting others before themselves, then I think that's one of the evidence of that. But again, it's easy to see that in church, and it's easy to fake that at church.
Oh yeah.
But I think one of the ways that first, like, okay, so the qualities I'm looking for in a woman is like, being in love with the Lord, so much so that, like, for me, it's like it's going to be difficult for me to have, like, like, what is it, how is it, like, I want, like the woman has to be so busy being in love with the Lord that it's going to take a lot of, like, of me, like, see, I don't know, showing myself to her, if that makes any sense, kind of like
proving yourself,
not proving myself, but more like like she's just so busy, like she's not focused. Oh, okay, okay, I'm sorry, it's hard phrasing it, but it's it's like she's so in love with the Lord, to so much so that she's not really desperate to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
That
That's
she
so good.
that one time, like, that if she wants to take it slow, and then she was like, okay, let's earnestly seek and hear the Lord, and let's pursue the Lord together. I think that's one of the qualities that I'm looking for, is that she's serious about her faith. That she's not just doing it because she wants to gain something from God. Because I see, like, I've talked to so many Christian, not just guys, not just women, but also guys as well, where it's like they only follow Christianities because, they know, they're aware that Christians are very attractive people, and and then, yeah, and then the reason why they're pursuing the Lord, because, I want to be like, I want to be on that same level with that person. Though it's a good desire, that should not be like your primary desire. Your desire is I want to love the Lord with all my heart, all my mind, and all my strength, because
That's
of
good.
what Jesus did on the cross. Not because I'm expecting something in return, like what y'all are saying, but because it is my purpose, it is my design to worship God. And someone who values that same love for God will show up, and then you will find that person very attractive, regardless of, like, your types. And I think last night we talked about types, by the way. And we said something about, like, like, sometimes our types can be superficial to the reality, that to the point that, and Audrey said this, I want to give Audrey credit, that she said this, that, like, you put God in a box.
Oh yeah.
If you're just, like, basically sticking to your type, but being open to the idea that, let her or his love for God crush your list,
That's good.
because that should be the top priority, is that how much do they love God, how much do they know, or how much are they aware that they're a sinner that are in need of God's grace. Because if someone is going by that life, you will see how they treat their friends, their neighbors, their family. And yeah, you'll just see that in their life, but just how they treat other people.
That's good.
So yeah, I don't know if that made any sense. I'm sorry, Audrey, you were saying something?
Yeah, no, that was really good. And I want to add to that on the part where you're talking about, like, they're so busy loving the Lord that they aren't desperate for a relationship. And I kind of want to see y'all's opinions on, like, whenever people refer to, like, the season of singleness as, like, the waiting season, on, like, y'all's thoughts on that, and kind of what you think about that.
Okay, we'll do that in one deal. You'll tell us about your thoughts on that as well, because I feel like you're interviewing us.
So she's like, listen, y'all hammered me with questions last night.
It's a good thing.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
No, we appreciate it because like when we wanted like more of this back and forth of like guys with both perspective. That's good. Or Jude. Okay, sorry. I would say, golly, I would say. On like, okay, I'm gonna reference JP. Actually, I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he knows what I'm talking about.
It's not Ben Stewart. For some people,
it's not Ben Stewart.
Last night they talk about Ben Stewart nonstop,
which we're gonna talk about Ben Stewart later. But that's.
I'm sorry.
JP had a really good like for anybody that comes to him who's like struggling in singleness and asking if they need to be seasoned singleness or what kind of season they need to be in, like especially for young adults. There's always this feeling of like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be here, there, this job, whatever. And so, but when he gets asked that question, he asked him, he's like, well, hey, when you woke up this morning, were you single or were you not? And then they were like, well, I woke up and I was single. He's like, well, then you're supposed to be single. And I think from what I kind of got from what he was saying, and which I kind of agree with, is that it's really simply that if you are single right now, then that's quite simply the season you're in. That may not be for that may not be for till next week or a month, but until you do, there is that potential partner. You're single and carry yourself as so of being as close into a relationship with the Father. And we kind of talked about this last night on in that season of singleness. It is such you will not have any more time than you do right now. Mm-hmm. And you will not, and another way to say that, you will not have any more time to just have time with you and God than you do right now. Yeah. Like there, and so, and because when you do get married, I mean, he talks about this in the Bible. I think Paul talks about this a little bit or something like that. It's like your desires, they're shifted. It's like
First Corinthians, yeah.
Yes, and you're not. It's not that you're not committed to Christ, but you now have a responsibility, especially as as future husbands, of providing for a wife. So we seek to fulfill the desires of our wife, and then we have God as well, and so that splits us. But when you're single, that's you can do so many things for the kingdom. And so I would say it's not season of singleness. It's not necessarily be like, don't designate that for yourself. That's another way of putting God in a box. Like don't feel like you need to be punished or that you're not worthy to date somebody, you're not worthy to be married or anything like that. Don't do that to yourself. Don't force that. If that is just the season currently that you're in, then live it to the fullest. Go do it for Christ. But yeah.
Audree, what do you think?
You haven't answered. She does.
I haven't answered yet? Oh. Audree, do you want to go first? Ladies first.
Okay, I can. That was so good. I completely agree. I think a lot of times, people think, I don't know, I feel like a lot of times for girls anyways, it's like waiting around and like, I'm waiting for a husband. Once I get a husband, then life will be perfect, and, putting like your hope in a relationship. But I think that the season of singleness truly is just such a gift from the Lord to like be able to have that undivided attention and to truly just seek His presence and seek His will for your life. And I like what you were saying, like, get busy, like go and do stuff for the kingdom, like don't just sit around and twiddle your thumbs and wait for a guy to come, but go out and make disciples, serve at the church, do things that the Lord's calling you to do, because you're called to do that regardless of if you're in a relationship or not. And I think that it's so important to get busy doing the things that God's called you to do instead of, like waiting around for someone to come and want to date you. So that's just
absolutely.
No, amen.
But sorry, before you go, I have a question on that though. I want to ask you later, Audrey.
Go ask it now before you.
No,
before
I want.
About it.
She has us. You have to answer.
I'm trying to avoid
it. The world wants to hear Mark's thoughts.
Why? Okay, well, I used to think this way, like singleness. I used to think that it's a curse. That's like, oh gosh dang it. Like I think you were saying it's like maybe I did something that God is punishing me, that He doesn't want me to be in a relationship right now. And sometimes that could be an issue because you might be idolizing.
And we're back now, actually.
For what? The fourth time?
For the fourth time. Oh my gosh. Okay, so oh my gosh. So anybody a little confused? I'm having to do this again. So we lost Audree. Then she came back. We didn't have her audio again. Then it was a mess. So then we all had to jump off the call and jump back in. So but now we're back. Okay. So you were talking about your thoughts and
Oh, we're still on that.
I think that's what you were talking about.
Do you want the audio to go bad again?
I don't want the audio to go bad.
Right when I start, right when I'm about to start talking about singing, the audio goes away. Audree, do you think that's a sign?
No, I think you have to answer the question.
Thank you.
Gosh dang it! I thought I was gonna find my way.
Let's get it. We'll get through it real quick. We'll finish it up.
Okay. What was the question again?
Okay. How?
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
What would you say, like, the waiting season? Like, what are your thoughts on that whenever you're in the season of singleness?
Oh, okay. Well, I used to think that it's a curse. Like I said that earlier. Yeah, no. I used to think that that God puts us in there because we've done something wrong. And sometimes that's the case, because sometimes we idolize relationships, right? And I think whenever someone is sitting on that throne of our hearts, God doesn't like that. He doesn't want,
no.
God is a jealous God. He doesn't share his glory and he doesn't share God's. And so what he does is that, you know what? No, I'm going to put you right here. I'm going to show to you that I am God. I'm the only one who can satisfy you. I'm the only one who can bring you true joy. And sometimes God will put us in that season. Now, I'm not sure if, like, when is the time that God's going to show you your future spouse, but I know for a fact that once you, like, again, we're talking about, like, once you become busy, so in love with the Lord, that you're not desperate about being in a relationship anymore, because you're content in Christ. Like, one of the ways that I see myself, like, if you're single, it's like, you know what, I have no problem if Christ comes back tomorrow, because to be with him is better than to be married and to be in a relationship with someone. I mean, for crying out loud, we're all bride of Christ. We're all gonna be married to Christ when he comes back. But yeah, that's the way I used to see singleness. I used to see it as a curse. But now the more I think about it, like what Audrey is saying, it's a gift. It's a gift that we get to have, that we have time, we have opportunities to meet other people that will be beneficial in our walk, and that we could faithfully serve the Lord without being so focused on pursuing someone and trying, like what you're saying. I'm sorry, like what you're saying with what Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians. Our attention is not, it's not split. We're focusing on the Lord wholeheartedly. But I think that's not what we do, especially in dating. I think we keep doing that. We pursue the Lord as much as we can. And it's not like that triangle scheme of, like, you pursue the Lord, I pursue the Lord. And as we grow closer to God, we grow closer to each other. So, but yeah, that's the way I see it now. Like, singleness is a gift that I don't have to see as something that, like, God is hindering me from something that is good, because he has given himself to me, and that is enough, and I have to constantly remind myself that every day, that, you know what, if I don't get married, even though if I want to, if that is your will, let it be done, because, like, you've given me everything, and that is Christ Jesus. But if you think that there's someone out there that's going to add to my walk, that's going to add to my desire to minister to people, then yeah, like, I would invite her. But it's not something that I would say that I'm, like, so desperate to have. Like, unlike a couple years ago, super desperate for a relationship. Now I'm like, okay, maybe I'm open to whatever God has, because, again, he knows this life better than I do. If God is holy, and I think Jackie Hill Perry talks about this in her book, it's called Holier Than Thou. If God is holy, that means he cannot sin. And if he cannot sin, that means he's worthy of our trust. So if you believe about God being holy, then you can fully trust him with all of your heart, that his plans for you is so much better than what you have in store for yourself. So sit on that truth for your whole singleness, your single season, And yeah, keep your gaze upon Jesus.
That's good.
So,
dude,
but yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, are we leaving the singleness now?
I was going to ask you a question, Audree. I was thinking about, you're talking about of like, it's and I think this is common word. A lot of like there are a lot of Christian women that do it's that like, all right, I'm just gonna sit and wait for my husband and stuff like that. Now guys are also, I think, very just as much as guilty of doing that as well, because it's as part of being a Christian, you're like, okay, so God promised me this, so He's gonna bring me this, so I just gotta do nothing, and it's like, well, no, it's like there's no it's not works, it's not there's no we're not legalistic. You don't need to prove yourself. You're not like unworthy of something. It's just not the right time, right, usually. And but and especially like for women, I'm curious, like in a guy's perspective, like we're looking for partners, as guys, like it's just we acknowledge, like, all right, we have to be pursuing, we have to be seeking, looking for those potential partners, stuff like that. So as women, like like with your friends, stuff like that, do y'all like I'm just curious, like when you are looking for those partners, like do some of y'all like go out seeking? Do you have friends that like ask guys out, or is it just kind of like, or do you feel like it is just kind of waiting till somebody does ask out, or if that what kind of question makes any sense?
Yeah. I actually don't have any friends that go out and like ask guys out.
Yeah.
So I feel like everyone that I know is just kind of like, okay, I want someone who's going to pursue me and like come up to me.
Yeah.
But I will say I was an intern for another podcast, which if you like this one, you should listen to A Little More Courage, because incredible. Like they just are so wise and amazing. But anyways, the girl there was saying how whenever she was in her season of singleness, she actually asked out one of her guy friends, and he kind of was like, no, I don't think that that's what the Lord has for either of us. But she was saying, she was bold enough to go and ask, and in return, she like had her answer. She wasn't, kind of making up scenarios in her mind of, oh, but what about this and what about this, and like taking breadcrumbs and turning it into something it's not. So I also think that that is good advice too, of like, it's a no until it's a yes. And so, I think that that's just honestly really true, instead of creating all these different scenarios and all the different things, because I know I'm guilty of that. I know lots of other people are. So I think that that is really helpful too.
What are those? What do you think are those scenarios that sometimes we build up on our heads? I mean, I know for a fact for guys, like, oh, like she's gonna say no, or it's like that insecurities of like, no, she's out of my league. But like for girls, what is it that like? What are those thoughts that you just like have in y'all's minds?
I think honestly, just like fantasizing a relationship. And I mean, you watch the movies, you see all the rom-coms, and so it's like, oh, I want a guy who's gonna travel across the ocean for me and all the different things. And so you just think of the scenarios of like, oh, that guy's cute. And then you think, I don't know, this is going to sound crazy, but like, oh, if he asked me out on a date, and what is our first date going to look like? And just honestly taking it to the full extreme whenever that's not how that works. So, yeah.
No, yeah.
Okay, so in that, like in a lot of that, you're talking about expectations, right? And I think there's this like it's so like and I think that's what, like, to like Mark said, like on a guy's point of view, there's so much fear, because like you don't want to break a promise, you don't want to fail expectations, you want to like live up to any, and especially like guys, we have such a desire to just impress girls. This goes back to when we're 5-6 years old, like, hey, look how fast I can run. It's just like it's really like from a young age, like you're kind of just raised like, no, like I want to win her, I want to. And so like I'm really curious, like what's kind of the line of like, like, because I think it's not wrong to have expectations, like women should have expectations, especially of looking for a potential partner and stuff like that. Well, if you have like anything to say to some listeners of like, hey, like maybe like, how do I put this? What are the right expectations to have when, like, if like going on a first date and stuff like that? And what are some of those fantasies that maybe you're living in versus living in reality of like, hey, this is what like probably go on like a first date or whichever, and so.
Yeah, that's really good. And okay, I do remember where I was going with this, but
Yeah.
last I think I was telling you yesterday about my college ministry, and on Thursday he was doing a series on, relationships, and he was talking about dating, and he was actually like one of his points was have realistic dating expectations, and how a lot of times we put all of our expectations of like what you would in a savior to a relationship, and how it's like, oh, like kind of what we were talking about earlier with like the waiting season of once I get married, then my life will be perfect and all the different things. But I think whenever it comes to expectations, it's kind of hard because I think we have to, have those realistic expectations, but we also don't want to settle. And so I think that, you just kind of have to, it's kind of a thin line between what's asking too much and what is being
Yeah.
like having standards. So I don't know. That is kind of a hard question. So do y'all have any thoughts on it?
Do you
Go ahead,
want to?
Ladies first.
I don't want to talk, and then the audio cut. It'll just. I'm afraid the computer's gonna catch on fire in Jesus' name. Knock on wood. No, but So gosh, I would say with a lot of that, I think like so often like in relationships, especially if you've grown up in the church and like Christian dating, like it's just most people like have it. I would say majority of like young adults, they don't have like this huge like dating list, or maybe have not dated much at all, and I think and when you haven't done so, I think that is a good thing, a blessing. It honestly, you're saving yourself heartache till that you find that actual like life partner. But the bad thing about it is that it's like because you have so much time to think on the future of those things, it creates all these fantasies, all these expectations, everything. And there's so many books where I've read where I can relate to this as a guy, where you desire to be that Prince Charming and like all these things, and be super romantic on a date. Well, then you do try to do those things, and then you realize, oh wow, life isn't necessarily like the movies. Like this is like they may not like that necessarily as much, or this or that. And so I think like in those is really just like, and I think God, like he commands us not just do this like in the things we do, but just day to day in a relationship with him. We don't worry about tomorrow. He worries about that. We focus on today, and so don't like set our plans. We give them to God, like of like, hey, this is what I hope for in a partner and in life, and romantically and all those things. Those are not bad desires, but whatever it is, you give it to him, and you let him handle those things, and then you deal with whatever it is in front of you. And I think that takes off a load of all the things that are not, and then you realize, oh wow, I don't have to deal with those things right now. I'm just going to deal with this. We're just in the talking phase, so I'm just going to focus on that. And then when you get into the dating phase, then you just focus on that, and you keep it just one stage at a time, and don't think too far ahead in the future or anything. And so, but that's kind of how I would say on that. Just kind of try to focus in the now. But
Well, and really quick, I want to add to that.
yeah,
I think it's important too to realize that like the other person is going to let you down and you're going to let them down. And I
yes,
realize that like we are human and we're going to make mistakes, and not to put that expectation of, oh, like they're going to be perfect and never going to let me down, and saying like vice versa, like how can I be a good like girlfriend, and like serve well, and all these different things of having the expectation for yourself. I think you kind of have to realize I'm going to make mistakes, and so is he, but together we serve a perfect savior, and that's the love that we're striving for. So you saying
that's
that
good.
just
That's really good. No, thank you for that. That's awesome.
No, yeah. It's that effective communication of like, yeah, no, I don't expect you to be the most perfect Christian in the whole world, but rather like I expect you to be faithful.
That's dang.
And I think
Yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
is. Because that was my word after passion, is like, like God doesn't expect us to be perfect. He expects us to be faithful. So I would say like you apply that same thing to others or to your partner, is that, like I think we put so much emphasis on, like, again, being holy is very important, staying pure is very important, but like that sense of grace and expecting them that they're going to fail,
yep,
because again, they're human beings that needs the same blood that we do, which is the blood of Jesus. Like, I think that extends grace to them, to like kind of like reassuring them like, hey, I know that you're going to mess up, but here's the thing, I'm still choosing to pursue you because that's how God pursued me, right? And setting up those expectations of, yes, you're going to fail, but we're both looking to Jesus, and just communicating that is very important. And I'm so glad you asked that, because most young adults get this idea that, oh, like our relationship should be like, Sadie and Christian's relationship, or should be should be this person's relationship. Like, again, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
So like some of the things that like that you see in public, of course, like you're gonna see that because that's the perfect example of what relationships should look like. But those battles behind the scenes, they have to keep that to themselves. So you have to expect that these people who also needs Jesus will fall short, and don't put a lot of so much Instagram expectations on relationships, but rather expect what Jesus said, right? That that there's going to be trouble here, but take heart that He has overcome the world. Meaning that even in your relationship, the gospel, the cross of Jesus Christ, is still sufficient for both of you.
Yeah.
Okay. And just, I think that setting up that expectation, in general, like, there's nothing wrong with I would say having a vision of what your relationship should look like, but don't let that vision get in the way of you finding joy in the now.
Yes.
That's what I would say. So what is your take on that, Audrey?
I think even kind of spinning off of that, doing like a little reverse, not psychology, but like Uno reverse card of that, but like, trying to, you have this expectation, but also not settling, because I think a lot of the times too, it's like, oh, which this is a point from that sermon, he was saying, we often can't find Mr. or Mrs. Right because we're looking to find Mr. or Mrs. Right now. And I think that that's so good too, of instead of like, a lot of people are either future focused or, oh, well, right now I want a boyfriend, so I'm going to find a boyfriend right now. And so I think that's also really good too, to, have those standards and have that expectation of, it might not be right now. It might be in a year or two or however long. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So how do you find a balance between like the two of like, yes, like, do not over fantasize the relationship, but at the same time, don't settle? Like, how do you find a balance between those two? Because we have to set a standard, but at the same time, don't make the standard so unattainable. How do you find a balance between that?
I think, it's good to have a desire, and a lot of times it can feel like this bad thing to have a desire to be married or to be in a relationship and all the things. But again, kind of going off of what you're saying, you don't want that to be an idol. And so I think, you can have those expectations and those standards, but I think that whenever it comes to like settling, you want to make sure that you're sticking to like the character attributes of it, and not necessarily like what we were talking about earlier, like putting God in a box of, oh, well, I think it's going to be this way and this is what I desire, whenever it's no, like God knows your actual desires, and what you think you want might not be actually what you want. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
No, yeah, that's facts.
Oh no, I was gonna kind of segue into like another question of like, a lot of the, like we're talking about like expectation, communication is major involvement, and just with couples, and just trying to work as a team, and really getting to know each other, working as a team is what helps you have a better marriage. So like in those things, like what do you think are like some good in communication between guys and girls? What are some things that like girls are usually like? What are some things that girls are desiring to hear from a man, like in communicating love? Like, hey, like I'm like, what are some things in insurance? It's like, hey, I want to lead you. I want to protect you. Like I'm pursuing you. Like what are some things that like girls are kind of looking for their communication wise?
Yeah, that's really good. I like that you asked that question. It kind of goes back to Ben Stewart. Forget about
No, wait, could you say his name again? I don't think we said.
I think this is the first time we're missing him. So
yeah, it's totally first time. I'm just trying to bug Mark. Now we talked about so much.
Okay. Sorry, Audrey, keep going.
So he has a book, and it's called Single, Dating, Engaged, Married. And in the book, he's talking about how whenever him and his now wife first started dating, he asked her out on a date, and from the beginning was just very clear with his intentions. And you hear the term like clarity is kindness, but that's exactly what it was. After each date, he would tell her, okay, I'm going to text you if that's okay, and would give her the option to say, no, like, I think I'm good, we had fun, but I don't think this relationship is for me anymore. But he would also give her that expectation of, okay, if this is what you want, I'm there. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to contact you. Let's go on another date. And so I think that's something that a lot of girls want, is just that validation of, okay, this is the other guy, or your partner, whoever, wants that too, and it's not just like, does he want to go on another date? Just having that confused feeling. So I think a lot of times girls just want that clarity in that relationship. So.
Well, or sorry, did you no, I was thinking like kind of like this, me and Mark, we talk a lot, and there's, and just conversation of like, and being a man of God, and like pursuing God, and like how we should act, and ways that we feel convicted. One time we were talking about just being kind, and I think that that's something that's so lost on just us as people, but especially men. It's like we do things and we say it's out of love, but it's not out of a kind spirit. There's a big difference between being nice and being kind. And I think, and I feel like in a lot of what you're saying, it's like there's a kind spirit behind like and the way that a man should communicate to a woman. Do you feel like a lot of times, like hearing from friends, like other people necessarily, like do you feel like a lot of times guys, like they're trying to be bold, but they're not being very kind and soft and gentle and pursuing women like necessarily?
I think so. I think sometimes people just go about it the wrong way,
Yeah.
and well, I don't know. I think a lot of times they'll beat around the bush too, and not necessarily be clear on their intentions, or
Oh yeah.
Start off with, I don't know, just being weird. But I think I don't. Yeah, you don't even want to know.
No, that's
But
fair.
but I think that whenever it comes to, being kind, I think that truly is, sharing your intentions of what you're wanting out of the relationship. And just from the very beginning, okay, we're going to be open and we're going to communicate, and this is what I want. What do you want? And so I think that goes a long way too.
That's good. That's good. And just having that honesty, because I think, when we're so used to the games, like, and especially in high school, or like there's a lot of stuff that we used to do and we may do now just out of insecurity, or just because we're used to, we think that that's how it's supposed to be. But no, like love is something that's it's upfront. It's like, hey, this is how I feel. This is how I want to pursue you. And it's an invitation. It's not any sort of contract or anything binding. It's a hey, do you want to join me on this journey? And so, but yeah. And
so when it comes to like looking and dating, because like when you go on the first date, what would you say some of the things that you want to be communicated, let's just say on the first date, for you, Audree? What would you say?
I think the first date is just really like getting to know each other, getting to know the small things, like nothing too crazy. And I think a lot of times people can put too much pressure on the first date and make it something it doesn't need to be. So honestly, I feel like the first date shouldn't really be too much pressure. I think it's just more getting to know each other. And honestly, I feel like if someone's asking not like deep questions, but if it's more trying to go like too deep, I think that's not the right time, just because not everyone has to know everything right off the bat. So I think that's something to kind of keep in mind, is first date, I think it should just be kind of more casual, and then from there, okay, how was it? Do we want to go on a second date? Just kind of go from there. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on it? What do you think?
Man, it's do you want to? I keep on talking first. Do you want to? Okay. But I want to hear your answer. You're not gonna skip out of this. I think, on a first date especially, it's something of, like you said, like it's definitely something like chill, like low key. I think like we, for some reason, in the past like couple years especially, or like I don't know, maybe 5-10 years or so, it's like the word date in the Christian community, like at least the one I grew up around, it's like if you ask someone to date, like you might as well just ask them like, hey, do you want to marry me? Like it's like that amount of pressure, of like that's like, no, it's just a date, like a date meaning I just want to get to know you. I do like maybe it's romantically involved, yes, but it's still like just getting to know you. And it's like, and then I think there's so like I think so it's like kind of getting past that boundary of like, hey, this is a first date, but it does not mean I am asking you to like be my girlfriend. It does not mean that like it's like there's no there's no strings attached yet on any of this stuff. And so I think with that, it's like keeping it keeping it just pretty chill, just getting to know each other. I will say, like, as a guy, it's kind of difficult of like you want to be upfront and communicate all those things. And like there were times I said stuff at the right time, and there were times I said stuff at the complete wrong time. And you kind of have to learn from mistakes on some of that stuff, and just kind of keep rolling with it. But there's but I would say, yeah, I think it's just finding the right time, and knowing that, like, I would say anybody listening, I don't think it's ever good for like to compare past relationships to like current or like the possible future ones, because if you do that, then you're like, oh well, like on this third date here, we talked about this, and then you could have, and you're like, oh well, with this guy like on this third date we haven't talked about that yet, so we're behind, or whatever, so we should. And then you start forcing conversation on stuff and everything. I've definitely forced conversation on stuff like that in the past, and it's just you gotta realize that every person you're pursuing or in a relationship with is different than the one past, and different than anybody else. They're their own unique individual. And so like because of that, you have to take each first date is really the first you're like a new first date. It's not like it's not necessarily the same as the past first dates you've gone on. And so, and looking at that person as a new person and be like, hey, this person might want to go slower in this area or faster in this area. And then you got to ask yourself, okay, am I willing to go that fast or that slow? And so, yeah, I think just kind of filling that out, just kind of person to person.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Oh yeah. It's good. I would go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Really quick.
No, go ahead.
So actually one of my friends went on a first date, like I think it was a month ago. And she was saying, the guy told her, okay, obviously I asked you out on this date. Here's my intentions going forward. This is what I saw in you that I really liked. This is what I'm looking for. And this is kind of like where I want to go. Basically just like laying it out of like, okay, this is what I saw. This is my intention. And that, like, she came home and that's what she loved the most about the date was,
oh wow,
he was very clear. And so I also think that, you kind of have to use discernment on like, okay, is the date going well? What is the topic like? And just kind of have that discernment of, okay, should I ask and like be bold, have that more intentional question and let them know like this is where I'm at, versus kind of, not going too deep. And yeah, so.
That's good.
So when you say going too deep, what would you classify when it comes to like dating and having conversation? What would you classify something as too deep for a conversation with someone on a first date?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's kind of hard because I really think you have to use discernment with it. And I think if the conversation is steering that way and you feel comfortable sharing, then that's fine. But I think, I don't know. It's kind of hard because like my testimony, that's something that like I'm not ashamed to share, but also it's like I don't think that necessarily like the first date. I don't know, honestly. What do you guys think? Because I honestly don't know.
Well, I'm glad you brought up there, and like I think what you're saying too is like you should be wise in the things you share and don't share. I think especially I think it's like if you're going to talk about just topics in general on anything, then like I would say like that's kind of free range and just kind of feeling out discernment. But like anything in your own personal life and your past, like be super protective of that, because you don't it's like, A, you don't know what that person's going to do with that information. And B, that could also give wrong signals too. And how, like, you may be sharing that and be like, oh, I'm just sharing my testimony. But the other person could be taken as like, oh, they're saying that because they're saying this because they really like me and they really, really, really trust me and stuff, and then, then you in stuff like, maybe shortly after and stuff like that. And it doesn't, and then on one end, it was like, oh, like they feel blindsided, but the other, it's, you were like, oh no, I was just sharing what I was sharing and stuff. So, but I think just kind of like we said, just having discernment. We always joke about like any answer or anything. It's like, oh, just pray about it. Like, just you'll have the answer. It'll be fine.
Audrey, have you seen the movie 500 Days of Summer by chance?
Oh wow, that's a good.
Wait,
no, you haven't.
You should go see that movie. That's a good.
So basically, it's a movie about this guy who went out and kind of met this girl, and he kind of over romanticized her. And so basically, they went out a couple of days. They kissed in a copy room. So they've done the deed and all this kinds of stuff. And she made it very clear to him on the first date that she's not looking for anything serious, but she likes him. All right, she likes him, but she's not looking for anything serious. And this guy was so persistent of like trying to change her mind throughout the whole movie. And she's been giving all these signs that no, I don't want to be in a relationship. And just spoiler alert for people who are interested in seeing the movie.
Poor listener.
If you want to see the movie, skip it. But if not, then yeah, this is basically the ending. Is that the girl, she ended up breaking up with him because she got so pushed towards the edge where it's like, you're forcing me to be in a relationship that I told you from the get-go that I don't want to be in. But the problem is that person is also doing boyfriend and girlfriend stuff with him, which also sends the wrong signals to the dude. So towards the very end of the movie, she ended up breaking up with him. And then I think a couple months later, they kind of saw each other in public. And this guy, like, you would assume that he learned his lesson, but he didn't. And he met this girl in a wedding, and they started going like, he started over romanticizing. Oh my gosh, this is fate. Like I feel like we're gonna get back together again. So they went to a wedding, they danced together, and then she invited him to a party to her apartment. Okay, and when he did, and there's this scene in the movie where there's like this there's expectations and there's reality, and they go side by side. So expectation is basically from the guy's perspective. How guys, welcome back to the Catch Up Podcast. we're gonna need to put commercials in between. It's been cutting off. I'm sorry, y'all. But
okay, you were talking about expectation reality. Yes, 500 Days of Summer.
Sorry. Okay. But before I was cut off by a commercial. So basically, in that movie, like there was this expectation versus reality, and like his expectation, like it's gonna go well, they're all gonna get back together again. But there's this reality side where like it kind of like it unfolds almost exactly as expectation, but not really, because the end result was the girl, his ex-girlfriend, was actually engaged, and she invited him to an engagement party, and yeah, so he has this all expectations, and it ends up him hurting. And so basically what I'm going with that is like, where was I going with that?
I think like you were saying of like having, maybe as a guy, like having the
communication.
Guys not, like the main thing there is he wasn't listening to her. If he actually listened to what she was saying, then like he would realize, oh, she was inviting me to this, and then so that would.
No, because like the thing is like he just only wants to hear what he wants to hear. That's the part, and that's like he's only seeing the signs that he wants to see, and he's not looking at the red flags. He's not looking at what the girl was communicating to him, and he's so persistent about just like, no, I can change her mind. And again, we have that mindset whenever we go into dating. Whenever someone's uninterested, I mean, I know it worked out for some people, of kind of like pursuing them, but like just that, like, no, I'm not gonna give up because it's part of the test.
See,
that's on the girl too, because she shouldn't have been like, she was like kind of giving mixed signals by doing all the relationship things but not wanting the commitment of the relationship. So that's on.
Yeah. That's what I told. That's
no.
Sorry.
Really?
No. Yeah. It's
a good movie
because again, like it talks it's basically narrated from the perspective of the guy, but at the same, because like from your first view, and you'll be like, man, that girl is a bad, she's a bad woman. But it's like when you start rewatch that movie, it's like it's actually both of them.
Oh yeah, they're
They're
both
both
terrible.
toxic. Yeah, they're both terrible. But yeah, no, it's just like that's where I'm going. Is like that communication is like, you know, um, don't 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 perceive things that are not communicated to you,
Yeah.
especially if like
Yeah.
like if it's in the first date. Let's just say incidentally someone shares their testimony with you, does not mean
Yep.
that you are the one that they've kind of like become
Yeah.
comfortable sharing it with. Maybe that's just where the conversation is going, right? Because I've done that with previous
yeah.
dates where it's like it didn't end, it didn't end in a relationship, but we kind of shared each testimonies for each other, and like we communicated like, hey, like this is just us sharing my story because this is how God moved
Yeah.
in my life,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, again, like what you're saying, it depends on the conversation. Because if your conversation is about God and how God moved in your life, then yeah, talk about your testimony. But if it's just gonna be like, hey, tell me your testimony, I want to hear every single bit of it. It's like, okay, hold on. Pause.
Exactly.
But yeah, no. So do you have anything to add to that, Audrey?
No, I think that you said, like, y'all both handled that much better than what I did on y'all's.
Oh
y'all's
no,
side.
you're
That was
great.
really good. So
Okay. So do you have any question, Joe?
Man, okay, so sorry, my like I should have one like on hand right now. It's just my head, like if we weren't like popping in and out. I was like all this has been crazy. I think like the only like I think the biggest thing is like we were talking about like expectation, reality, guy's perspective, girl's perspective. We haven't really talked about roles stuff. We talked about that like a lot yesterday and stuff. And like it's what you were talking about bringing up Ben Stewart. That guy like giving clarity of like, hey, this is my outline. This is kind of what I'm thinking. This is what I feel about you and whatnot and everything like that. And guys leading. I guess like one question I think just kind of, do you think Audrey that do you think that guys should lead in dating even though you're not married?
that's a good question. I think, kind of going back to Vince Stewart again,
Yes.
he talked about, whenever you're dating, you're still like your own individual. Whenever you get
Yep.
married, you become one, but whenever you're dating, you're still two different people. And so I think that within dating, I would say there are still roles, but it's not necessarily like the pressure of marriage. I think that
Oh yeah.
you're still your own individuals, and like the girl doesn't have to like submit to the guy. I think that that's
Right.
something for marriage. But I do think that there is a way for the guy to kind of pursue the girl. And so I think that, if the girl's the one who's constantly like setting up dates, texting him, like doing all the things, then that's not going to end up translating into marriage where, is she going to be the one leading the household, or how is he going to handle that? And so I think that, within dating, there are still those roles, but it's not as like, there's not as much pressure as what it is for marriage. So
Speaking of, you said something about pursuing. So what would
mhm.
you, for as a woman, who's who's pursuing the Lord, how do you want to be pursued, like as a single Christian? Like, just like, how do you think us men should pursue a Christian woman who's in love with the Lord?
Mhm. I think I see a lot with like my friends how guys will either like text them or Snapchat or all the different things. And I don't like that. I think that I don't know, I think there's such a beautiful thing about having the boldness to go up to someone in person and asking them out on a date and just saying from the beginning, like setting your intentions of, hi, like, I'd like to get to know you more, ask you out on a date. And then I think from there, was the question how to be pursued?
No, yeah, like how do women want to be pursued? Because like again, like we talk about
Yeah.
pursuing, but like for some girls, it's like, oh, like I want the pursuit to like like I want him to talk to me on Snapchat. I want him to keep the streaks on or something like that, or like. But like for a Christian woman who's pursuing the Lord, how do y'all want to be pursued by godly men?
Yeah, no, I think honestly, like in person is the most respectful thing. And then, which there's actually a podcast, and it's Maya Huff. Do y'all know who that is?
Maya Huff?
She's Sadie Robertson's sister-in-law. But
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, so she has her own podcast, which it's incredible. And she's doing a series right now, actually, very timely, about relationships. And it's her and her husband, and they're kind of talking about, whenever they first started dating, they were long distance. And so, like, they had to navigate, okay, do we like texting throughout the whole day or not really talking and then having a phone call at night? And, I think the same thing kind of translates into that, where each relationship is going to be different and each girl wants to be pursued differently. So, like, for me personally, I am more like traditional, I guess, and don't really want to be asked on a date like on social media or anything like that. I think that's I don't know. I'm more traditional in that sense.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't translate very well.
someone else, who could maybe want to be asked out through Snapchat or text or however. So I really think it kind of depends on the person in the situation. But
That's good. That's good. No, because that's the thing in my country. So I don't know if I told you, but I'm from the Philippines. I was born and raised there, and we were taught, like, I didn't know what dating is like until I moved here, and like dating here is basically different from like what it's like in the Philippines. So in the Philippines, we have this thing called courting. Well, I don't know. I don't know. You guys are familiar with that term here as well.
No, yeah.
In the Philippines, we call it ligo or something like that. So basically, what the man will do is that he will communicate to the woman how he truly feels. Like, hey, like, I really like you. I want to pursue you. Do I have your permission to pursue you? And some women will be open to it, and some women won't. And when they say yes, so what the man will do is that he will constantly send her flowers, all right, and like he will ask her like, hey, what's your favorite flower? And he will send those flowers, and then he will ask her like, okay, so what is your favorite hobby to spend time with? And then some woman will say like, oh, I just want to go around the mall and shop and all this kind of stuff. And he'll be okay, let's do that. And then they will pursue, and then that's when they will talk. And after that, he will take her home, open doors for her, all this kinds of stuff. And he will ask her, hey, like, what kind of food do you like? And he is the one who's initiating basically the quote unquote date. And he is the one who's just like, leading her into like to certain places of like of opening doors to like having a good and intimate conversation about setting up goals, all this kind of stuff, asking the good questions. And after that, there will this period of time where it's like, hey, like let me sit this one out for 1 week, let me think about where we should go. And after that, like sometimes it takes about like a couple of days, and then the girl will reach out to the guy and say like, okay, hey, I think that we've got along really well, we've connected, let's pursue this relationship together. And that's when it becomes a relationship. That's when they start quote unquote dating. It's like you have this period of time where you like the guy will pursue this girl by sending her flowers, constantly sending her some like some inspirational stuff. And if you're religious, they will ask you like, hey, how could I pray for you, and something like that. And then like constantly ask them like, hey, what you've been what you've been feeling recently, and how's your day, all this kinds of stuff. They're just being intentional, and that's what we do. And I just want to communicate that, because like, is that something that like you think girls wanted to have when it comes to like being pursued?
Yes, definitely. And it's kind of funny because one of my friends, she recently went on a date, and she was just so happy because he like got out of his car and like opened up her car door. And it's just little things like that where it's like being intentional to making the girl feel special. Oh, I'll bring her flowers, or I'm gonna open up her car door. I'm gonna do all these little things to make her feel special, I think is the best way to put it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I kind of have one question on that, because like by the way, I completely agree on a lot of that stuff. And honestly, like there's a lot of men that like they want to be, they desire to be men, they desire to be men, they desire to do these things. I think there's a lot of guys Like, and I have had like when there's been times where I've taken a girl out and they didn't necessarily want me to open up the door for them.
Mhm.
Like, so like when it's like I guess it's hard from a guy's like point of view. There's like it's like there's doing your best, and then there's like trying too hard, if that makes any sense. And so I guess like from like from like a girl's point of view, like what are like I guess like the help out guys, stuff like that, who want to be chivalrous, and doing those polite things, and like not just open up car doors, but like having a plan for the date, and like being an adult, like some of those things, if there's some guys that like they maybe they want to do those things, but they're afraid of that rejection of a girl saying like, hey, I don't want you to do that for me, and stuff like that. It's like, should those guys just be bold enough just to go ahead and do it, and just like accept if like that girl says no or not, or kind of ask them before they do that, like, hey, I kind of would like to do that for you, and like that sort of thing. And is it polite to ask before, or just kind of be bold to do that?
I think it depends on what it is, and because you don't want to put too much pressure on dating, kind of like what we've talked about. But also, I think like if it is opening up the door for someone, I honestly think it's just the right thing to do, to just be bold and do it.
That's
and then
good.
if the girl doesn't appreciate that, then you can kind of go from there. But I think honestly, I personally would say just be bold and do it, because well, I'm trying to think. It really just depends on what it is.
Yeah.
But if it's like serving them and doing something that's kind, I think that you can't really go wrong in just doing it. So
Yeah.
But what are y'all's thoughts on it?
Man, I would say, or do you want to go?
Dude, okay, no, go ahead.
I feel like you talking first. I would say definitely yes on that part. Just being bold enough to do it. And there's because I think there's there's, like you said, like there's a stuff that I think it's pretty easy to decipher. It's like, all right, what's a little thing that like it's okay that you don't have to ask permission for? What are the big things? Ask permission for. And so, and I think like open car door, or like paying for the meal, like or like maybe that, like off, like, hey, can I pay for the meal, and like that's that thing. Which I think it's good to be bold to do those things. I think as a man, it shows, it's like, hey, this is who I am. This isn't because you're here. This wouldn't change if it was somebody else, or whatever. But this is just who I am, and I want to show that. And I think there's a lot of confidence that is shown in a man when he does that. And I think there's a lot of security that shows, it's like, hey, I'm somebody that can lead. I'm somebody who can be a leader. And so
yeah, that's good.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't know, because with that, like that's a really good question of like, I think maybe establishing the boundaries of like communicating first, of like asking that. I think maybe that could be part of like,
That's good.
I don't know, like part of the first day, I guess, like asking like
talking
the boundaries.
about boundaries and what they're comfortable with,
like kind of like I mean, because I agree with you, Joe. Like on the first date, you want to show who you are. You want to show that you're chivalrous. You want to show that you care for the woman. You want to show that you're a gentleman.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm kind of also going off to like what Audree was saying. I'm kind of like, if they don't like it, then maybe that's something. Okay, I respect your boundaries. Maybe not. I will not do that. But kind of like also putting up front that, hey, this is me as a person. Like, this is how I pursue someone. I'm trying to make them feel special, and trying to, this is my basically love language is service. Yeah, and stuff like that. But speaking of boundaries, I'm very curious as to like, of like, what would you like? Okay, so for like, I believe there's like the physical boundaries and like the intimacy boundaries. So I know like that is. Do you think that should be communicated on the first date, and how should it be communicated?
I don't. That's hard, because I feel like, kind of going back to what we were saying with the first date, on you don't want to put too much pressure on it or get like too deep. I think I think whenever it comes to boundaries, that's something that should be discussed pretty early on. I don't know about the first date, but I think that that is something that is really important to discuss. And I know that even like Maddie Prue and her husband, they even had like a purity contract where they would
Mm.
write out all the things and they sent it to their friends to keep them accountable. And so,
Whoa.
like purity is something that is so precious and something that really needs to be protected. So I think that, you do want to discuss that really early on. That way you're not putting yourself in situations where you're going to be tempted to fall into that sin.
That's good.
Well, and that I've never heard of that, of a purity contract, because I think there's so many times that's intense, but I think that's intense in the right ways. And
Yeah.
me and Mark have talked about this, and I think like other guys, it's like you have to you have to determine, it's like, all right, there's the obvious, it's like, all right, we're like, it is a sin to have sex before marriage, but then there are things that can lead to that. And it's like, and you have to figure out, and you have to really be honest with yourself, like, all right, what is that thing that will lead to that? And then you have to be willing to cut that off from the relationship. And I think that's so cool. Like in a purity contract, both of y'all are making that together, and then both of y'all are signing that together. And then also, to put on top of that, you're you're willing to involve community in on this to help y'all like keep that safe and stuff. So that's awesome. I never heard of that, but
yeah, I never heard of that too.
No,
I don't know about the contract. But yes, you need someone to hold you accountable. I think communicating that to your mentors of like, hey,
yeah,
I'm going out with this person. We're going on a date. There are times like there's going to be just the two of us. Please hold us accountable. I don't know about the contract. I mean, this is just me
no, that's
personally.
fair.
I think the contract is kind of overbearing. I think that's kind of exaggerated for me personally.
No, I want a lawyer.
It's
in
like
my
it's like
relationship.
one of lawyers. Like, man,
I want some legal representation.
but maybe like praying to God for both of y'all. Like first, maybe set up on a date. I get this might be crossing that boundary of like being too spiritual with one another, because some people have a problem with like praying together in
Yeah.
dating, and I didn't
Yeah.
know that was an issue until like just recently. But
No,
but
same, honestly.
right, it's
Yeah.
it's a speaking of that, like what are your thoughts on that? Like, is that like a good boundary not to kind of do spiritual things together, or do you think that's kind of like, no, I think you guys are being too legalistic, being establishing too much wall?
I don't know if I'm the right person to ask on that, just because I I personally don't see anything wrong with praying together, but also like that is something that's really intimate, and like you're I mean, it's so hard because that is like a really intimate thing, but
Mhm.
also, you want your relationship to be centered at Christ, and so I think
Yeah.
that it's hard to achieve that if you're not going to the Lord together and praying together. So I don't know. I think that that is something that should be done. I don't know necessarily like how early on, but I think that, you should pray together and you should fight this battle together. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's just kind of my opinion on it.
I think it should be set, right? Like if you guys are kind of like, yeah, like we will date. Like you guys like way past the talking stage. You guys are like
Hmm.
said like, yeah, we're all attracted to each other. We know that our goal is to marry. So maybe
Yeah.
once you guys set that goals, and maybe incorporating that spiritual discipline of praying for one
Yeah.
another, praying with one another. I think that should be a good spiritual discipline. Like for me
Yeah.
personally, I don't have a problem as long as like you guys know what you're all doing, and you
Exactly.
got. I mean, you cannot do that on the first second date, because again, like what we're talking about, you're just getting to know that person. They're not that part of your life yet. You guys are not setting up a goal to like, hey, like we're going this way, but more of like once you finally realize, both of y'all know that, hey, I'm attracted to you. Let's pursue this together. Let's go and let's get into a relationship. Then yeah, maybe practice that spiritual discipline. Because I,
Yeah.
for one, like that's something I really want. Like I want us to pursue the Lord together. That I want Christ to be the foundation for this. You know.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
again, some people might disagree with me on that one, and I might be the wrong person to be talking about this. But you know what? That's my personal conviction. So
But I mean, it's hard because
Yeah.
I don't think they're necessarily, there is the right people to talk to about that, and the people that like are married and like that sort of thing. But also what we kind of talked about, it's like there's, I mean, obviously there's what the Bible says we shouldn't do, but then there's the discernment that goes into every single relationship, and that every relationship, it's different how people meet, it's different how people walk out dating, it's different how they walk out engagement. And so I think in walking out that prayer and stuff is one. I would say the only thing I think I don't know. I think people like they should like we should pray together, but I think the only like hesitancy into not doing so is it's like I think it goes back to like guarding your heart, and to like making sure you're not placing somebody on the seat of Christ, and that like you're like while you're still single, you do not there's no dependency on anybody else here on earth that is hindering you from you and your personal relationship with Christ. It's like you don't want a codependency with somebody else of like, okay, I have to pray with my my dating partner in order to like pray to Christ. It's like that's not good. And so I think just making sure there's not that dependency, and making sure you're both not only praying about your relationship and then idolizing that, and then that can separate you from Christ even more. And so that would be my only hesitancy on that, and just checking your heart. But
now that I think about it, maybe if you're engaged or like you're kind of like said like talked about engagement already, maybe
that's a good
I have friends that are like they're married now, but that's what they did when they started dating. They didn't pray for and with one another, but they started doing that when they're like, okay, like you're the person I want to marry. Like they're not engaged yet, but they're like, yeah, like you're the person I want to marry. So like they have this like more intentional spiritual pursuit of one another. So maybe like establishing that of like, I don't know, like, because again, like you said, like you got to guard your heart. You should not be dependent on that person for your faith. Trust me, you've been there. It sucks. And yeah, like, because again, like you guys are still both singles. You're still. Someone said like, if you guys are dating, you're still brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yes. Yeah.
And like as long as like there's as long as like you guys set a goal, like we're gonna marry each other, like, or you guys are married, you guys are both still brothers and sisters in Christ. You're not one yet. So I don't know. What do you think of that, Audrey?
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before on like you're your own individual until you get married, then you're one. So, I mean, I completely agree with that. I think that, whenever you are dating, you are still brothers and sisters in Christ. So, yeah, that's really good.
Okay, nice. Do you have anything, Joe?
Man, I think it's hard. It's hard. We talked about a lot. I think, like the only thing, like especially in that topic of like when we're talking about, bringing other people in, bring about community and stuff like that. Do you, and I think we talked about it before. It's like, you want to bring in your community. It's like, have you ever seen or experienced anybody, or or do you think it's okay? Or what? How do I put this? What are some good maybe like boundaries to make sure like you think like all right, I'm allowing my community in, but I'm not depending on them for like what's a yes and no and to do in our relationship to progress stuff forward to and stuff off. We've heard stories before of like people where they're it's
they're
like
just meddling into the relationship.
Yes, and it's like, hey, the Lord's telling us this, that y'all should break up or get married or whatever and stuff. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That's really good. I think whenever it comes to community, you have to have, again, that discernment on who you share that to, because, going back to Ben Stewart, he was talking about him and Donna which is his wife, whenever they first started dating, they both worked in the church. And, some church people can be very nosy, but they were saying how they kind of kept it a secret because they didn't want every single person to know, because, not everyone deserves to know that. And so I think whenever you're first starting to date, you have to be very wise on who you go with. And I think, bringing in mentors or couples who are older than wiser and have that experience to kind of bring them into it. And also just like truly like your good godly community, not, I don't know, I think it's hard because you truly do have to have that discernment on, okay, is this person going to speak life into this relationship? Or even if they don't agree with it, where are they getting their counsel from? So I think that also plays a role into it of not listening to people who don't have like the Lord that they're looking to, so that's just kind of my thoughts.
That's good. Thank you for saying that. And also like knowing that you should not have at least more than 4 people that is meddling into your relationship.
That's a good number.
I think I would say like maybe have 3 that you really trust, that are pursuing the Lord, that for a fact that you could take their wisdom and take it to the Lord. Now, some people will like listen to some people and they will take that as an absolute answer, and they will base all their decisions on that. And instead of relying and instead of taking those wisdom and bringing it to the Lord and praying about that. Like some people just like basing their decisions on other people's responses rather than going to God. And that's like I would say is a type of problem that I know for a fact I sometimes do. But
That's good.
Well,
That's good.
even JP, he said this before, where it's like, whenever you're seeking counsel from someone, or even someone's coming to you, like, you have to resist the urge to say something profound. And, like, even just listening. And so I think that kind of translates to relationships, where if you're asking for community or someone's asking you for advice on their relationships, sometimes you have to just pray about it and resist the urge to say something like, oh, the Lord told me this, even if no, the Lord didn't tell you that, So I think not having an answer is perfectly okay, and just sitting on it and praying on it, I think, is much wiser than giving an answer if you're not sure if the Lord's in it or not,
That's good. And before we so we have two more questions, I would say. So one of them, like, so what do you think that questions that we should be asking whenever we go into dating, like especially for not just asking that person but also asking ourselves? um what would you say should what would you say are the questions that we should be asking ourselves?
That's really good. I think the first one that popped in my brain is, are they pushing me closer to the Lord? I think, like, even with friendships, after you spend time with someone, it's like you should want to go and spend time with the Lord, because that person's so in love with Jesus. And so I think whenever it comes to relationships, I think after you get done spending time with them, you should want to go and spend time with the Father. And so I think that's just the first one that comes to my mind. And also, I think you have to ask yourself, are they servant hearted? Are they serving other people? What does their community look like? And truly just asking yourself, kind of going back to that very first question on like the different things to look for. I think you just kind of have to ask yourself, okay, all these characteristics, like, are they proving that they have the fruits of the Spirit? Like, what does their fruit look like? And just kind of going more in depth on truly like who they are and what they're about. So
That's good. Dang, that is really good. Yeah, I was just wondering because, again, like I think we should be like before we get into dating. I think that's like something like we should have that self reflection of like, do I know what I'm looking for? Because if you don't know what you're looking for, then maybe maybe you're not. Maybe you should not be doing this in the first place. Or if you don't know what to ask, like you'll just be, like it's good to walk by faith and not by sight, but it's not and it's not good to walk blindly into something and then just kind of like you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're looking for, and it's just unfair for that person, I would argue.
Well, and in dating, in that sense, it's like going to the forest. It's like there are guys who have like trained their lives. They know exactly what they're looking for to hunt. They've hunted it before. They have the tools to do it. They can go in and out in a day and find exactly what they're looking for. But if they don't know what they're looking for, they don't know how to track. They don't have the right tools. They could be lost for days, weeks, months, years, and you finally get out and they have nothing but splinters and hurt, and maybe a few lost limbs. But sorry, that's a weird analogy. But there's but it's like it's like before you start stepping to dating, it's like, I think that's a good for listeners. It's like, hey, take a step back. It's like, do I know what I'm looking for? And then also before you go into that, once you know what you're looking for, are you willing to be patient for that thing and not drop your standards for that? But
yeah, that's good.
And
that's
even
really
going off of that too, Maddie Prue has a book, and it's called The Love Everybody Wants. And in the book, it's so good. But in the book, she talks about how whenever she was, I think, in high school, she really wanted this designer bag, but it was super expensive. She knew her dad wasn't going to pay for it, but there was a knockoff version that was like $50. And she's like, I can bat my eyes and he'll buy that for me. So she ended up getting the knockoff bag. Well, then fast forward like a few weeks later, she's carrying it down the hallways in high school, and one of the handles just breaks. And she's like, what in the world? Like, that's so, like, what? And she was telling her sisters about it, and they were like, yeah, Maddie, you should have expected that. You paid the cheap price whenever, that's a lot of us.
Man.
we're willing to settle for what's available versus if we were to, save up for that purse, then we could have the real thing. And so that analogy was
So
just so
convicting.
good. And yeah. So
That's willing to wait for the real thing and not for anything less. That is awesome.
That is so convicting. Oh my gosh, that was really good. Dang. Okay. Anyways,
No.
So, do you have any other questions?
No, I think just the last one, but I think we're thinking the same thing. On that one.
So like, what would you? Okay, we're just shooting for the stars. Okay, so what would you say to those people who are like into the process of dating or about to date that don't know what to look for? What would you say to those individuals, not just girls, but also guys as well, that they just kind of don't know what they're doing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to like looking for a relationship, what are some of your final remarks for them?
I would say that, you kind of have to, okay, first off, I would say read like books and listen to podcasts about dating because, I do not know like literally anything pretty much. I'm like, okay. But all the books and podcasts is all the wisdom I've gained like about this topic. So definitely listen to podcasts and read books about this because I think that helps kind of gain knowledge about it and kind of give you more standards too of what to look for and what a godly relationship should look like and kind of give you that like step-by-step guide of what to do in that scenario. But also I would just say not to settle in that because, it talks about in the Bible, like a nagging wife. Is it like saying that it's like being in bondage or something along those lines?
It's better to die alone in the desert than to have a nagging wife.
Yes. And so it's like if you end up with someone who like you settled and say like you're dating this guy and he has anger issues and you're like, oh, it's fine, he doesn't ever get angry at me, then you marry him, it's just going to spiral. And so then you're stuck in that marriage where if you would have not settled and on you personally are like, okay, I'm not going to date someone who has anger issues, then you could have avoided all of that. And so I think it's just really important to kind of know what you want and stick to that and not settle for anything less. So
that's really good. That is good. Dang. Not settling for anything less.
That's good.
You hear that, Joe?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. You hear that, Audrey?
Yep.
But yeah, no.
Oh man.
You have anything?
No, man. I think that sums it up really just beautifully. Thank you so much, Audrey. And I think it's just, I think in that, like, it's like, just wait, like, just like, please just wait. And it really, I think just wait with anything in life. It's just when don't do it until God tells you to, and it'll be obvious when God does show that thing up. So,
yeah. And also I just want to add, like, I don't know, I feel like the Lord is stirring in my heart just recently just now. Like, if you think that like, oh man, it's kind of too late now, like for me to kind of like, like I'm just like so stuck into this decision of, or like maybe just like, I don't know, like that relationship didn't work and I kind of just, maybe it's too late for me. And I was like, don't think that God is less powerful not to restore that.
Yes.
Or not to restore you back into being ready for a relationship. Because regardless though, like, like I don't think you could mess up your own life because you're not that powerful, I would say. God can always restore and like keep your eyes on him. And again, like what Audrey was saying, like if you really have to like leave like a very toxic relationship because you're just so set on the idea that no, this is the person I want to marry, I would highly, highly recommend to pray earnestly about that. And don't be afraid to bring some mentors into it to kind of pour some wisdom. Because I know that there's some people out there that are like, they're settling because they've kind of made decisions for themselves that this is the person I'm going to marry. And it's nothing that came from the Lord. There's no convictions behind it, but it's just more of like, no, like you're like you kind of like idolizing that person. So I would say to that person, like, please, I would say look earnestly to the Lord and seek his wisdom. Do not rely on your understanding, but trust in the Lord with all your heart. Okay. And then that be open to anything that whatever God says that you should do, because he knows better than you do. And if he tells you to maybe, I don't know, like leave an abusive relationship now that you're in and that you're seeing some red flags, don't ever think that you're going to change him, or don't ever think that it is your job to change him, because only God can do that. So I don't know. I just want to say that to someone who might be going through that. Like, I don't know. That's been stirring up in my heart when you started talking earlier. So I'm just like, I feel like I just have the urge to say that.
God, that was good.
I actually listened to a podcast. It was this week. I don't remember what day, but it was from the porch, and I think I was telling you guys about it yesterday. But it's called RIP to Toxic Dating, and y'all should listen to it if you haven't. It's from a few years ago. But in that podcast episode, he was saying that there's like a statistic talking about, or I think he would just like go up to people and ask them like, oh, why are you dating this person? Like, what do you love about them? And they would answer like, oh, I don't know. Like, we've just been dating for so long. And it's kind of like, if you are just dating someone because it's comfortable, then I feel like that's also something to kind of just really pray and reflect about, because that's not why you date someone. And so, yeah. Just
that's good.
That's awesome. Dang.
That's good. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for recommending that. We're definitely going to check that out.
Yeah,
God, I think we've plugged in enough podcasts and books to keep all of us busy.
Yes. I feel like we should change this episode to like, what are some resources?
What are some resources?
No, seriously.
But no, yeah. But Audrey, we thank you so much for being on this podcast. We are so sorry about those technical difficulties and last night's. But like we've said last night, you've truly blessed us with your wisdom.
Yes.
And also your podcast.
Yes.
Okay, one more time, can you tell us what your podcast is?
Which, first off, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. Y'all seriously are just the best, and y'all's wisdom has blessed me so much. So I first off just want to say thank you guys, because y'all are incredible. But our podcast is And They Were Roommates, and it's only on Spotify, so I'm so sorry to everyone else, but
no, in the future they're gonna have more platforms.
That's right,
for sure.
Yes,
I know
hopefully.
We know that. But yeah, no, yeah. Just like I would say, Audrey, like please, like keep doing what you and Eleanor are doing. You guys have no idea how much you guys are blessing. Hopefully, not just the people in the Panhandle, but like literally majority of Christian young adults out there with y'all's wisdom and y'all biblical insights. Like again, like I've listened to quite a few of your episodes and like literally blessed me a lot. And but yeah, so for some of y'all that are listening, I would say like check out their podcast. We're gonna leave their link in the podcast notes, and then we highly recommend, like, if there's one or few podcasts that you guys have to listen to, we highly recommend their podcast.
Yes.
So yeah.
Thank you. That's so kind. And I feel seriously the exact same way about your guys. Y'all's has blessed me tremendously, and y'all just seriously keep doing what you're doing. And the Lord seriously is just speaking through you both. So I'm so thankful for y'all and this podcast. So thank you guys for all that y'all are doing.
Yes. Thank you, Audrey. Okay.
Thank you, Audrey.
Joe, do you want to pray us out?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Heavenly Father, God, just thank you so much just for getting us through today, Father, and helping us finish this out, Father. We know that nothing comes easy, especially in just trying to preach your word, Father. Struggles come, but we persevere, and you give us strength to do so. And in this, all we were talking about, Father, I just pray that you give strength to anybody listening who feels discouraged in their dating life and trying to find that partner, and that they know that they truly don't need any partner. They just need you, Father. That husband or wife will come along in the right time, in your timing, Father. Just thank you for Audrey again, having her on today. Thank you for my brother Mark, and just pray this alone and pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Audrey. Oh my gosh. We made it. We got it.
We have the audio. We have the video. We have everything.
Yes.
So
let's go.
Praise God for that. And yes. So Audrey, do you have any final remarks? Just final like thoughts? Anything that you want to say to our listeners?
Just thank you guys for having me on. This seriously has been amazing. So I'm so blessed by you guys. So Thank you. And I had so much fun. I hope that this blesses people. So.
Yes. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank
Joe, do you want
you.
to close this out?
Yeah, we'll do a quick outro. Okay, so thank you so much for listening to the Catch Up Podcast. If you have any suggestions, questions, or corrections, you can reach us at
catchuppodcast2023@gmail.com.
All right. Oh, we did it this time. We didn't.
Huh?
Last time we did. We weren't smooth with it. We did
There
this time.
I think that's what the Lord is trying to fix with this one.
Trying to fix the outro. Thank you so much again for listening to Catch Up Podcast, and we will talk to y'all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for catching up with us on the Catch Up Podcast. If you enjoyed our God-centered conversations, share the love by sharing this on your social media or leave a review. Don't forget to tune in next week for more uplifting chats. Until next time, we will catch you on the next episode of the Catch Up Podcast.